give the impression to the people that we are sincere and we wanted to, And especially those people who loved Wycliffe and Hus, they are very much hurt by the burning of John Hus and taking out the bones of Wycliffe and doing all that things. There's no one or two. Number of nobles and a lot of people honored those men because they were learned men, they were moral men, they lived simple life. They did not appropriate the money of the people for their luxuries. They lived simple, dressed simple, ate simple, they did everything. They were not a burden like the Pope and the cardinals who were always demanding, bring more, bring more, bring more. These people were doing a lot of good works. They were helping the poor people with the little they had. So they were not taking. So that was one thing they wanted, bring some reforms in the church. Then they had a third purpose, that is, they had to suppress this heresy because it is growing. Even though the leaders are gone, that doesn't mean the followers are. Even though all the lowlands are, destroyed, that does not mean that there are no people. Yes, because the seeds are sown in the hearts of the people and it is sprouting and growing in these people. The common talk in the neighborhood talks, women getting together and talking about, hey, what do you think about that? What do you think about this? Children talking about it. Nobles talking when they get together. Hey, this guy, Pope, you know what John Hus said? The church can go without cardinals and Pope because there are no cardinals and Pope in the Bible when the church started. So these are, unnecessary appendages we are all carrying. So the nobles were discussing. Somehow the emperor and, of course, more than the emperor, the Pope wanted to suppress this heresy. For these three purposes, they called a council. First council was called in 1409, in Pisa. The second was in Constance, 1414 to 1418. The third at Basel, 1431 to 1449. So you know how many years they have taken. The first one was a short one, but the others were long. 4 years and then how many? 18 years. Long period of time. Why such long period was taken? The people who came together were not agreeing on these things. Some of them were also buying the ideas. So, when Pope and others found out that even some of the cardinals were saying that, I don't think Wycliffe was all that wrong. Look at the cloth of this man. 10 lakh suit. In a country where people don't have any clothes, you think about that, that's big progress, right? Yeah, I think that's big progress. So that's the sort of thing they were talking about, So, these dragged on. They could not come to the conclusions. Even though popes and all these people wanted to persuade them, hey, come on, agree to it. They were not saying, no, we cannot agree. If those people have pointed out some truth, what are we going to do about it? There is excesses, there's luxury. How much money is being burnt? Even the building the Sistine Chapel, cannot believe that. How many millions of tons of paint was used by Michelangelo. Painting the Sistine Chapel. All the saints of the Old Testament and the New Testament, the 12 persons and all everybody. That poor man has laid out like this and paint, with the brush. So every day we say that, 50 gallons of paint more. Otherwise I'm going to stop it right here. Saint will not be having eyes because eyes are not painted. There will be no lights and all that, So, they had to provide. Where is the money? So Pope was ordering all the princes and all, before this date you have to send so many millions of francs or whatever they are, those silver coins and gold coins and this and this. Some of those people were also getting upset. And things were going, beyond their control. That was a fact. But yet they don't want to admit failure. At this time, The councils were viewed infallible and authoritative in the church. The councils were respected by. So when a council come to a conclusion, that conclusion is accepted infallible conclusion. So the popes and others were very careful that what conclusion comes must be acceptable. Otherwise, if a wrong conclusion is made, people will take that conclusion as infallible. For this reason, councils were very, very difficult. 18 years, the third council from 1431 to 1449. You think about that. It dragged on. Conclusions cannot be drawn. Conclusions cannot be drawn. Yes. So, the council at Constance appointed Martin first as a legal pope and sold the system. There were, 3 popes. The council at Constance sold that one by appointing a third one and then requesting the other 2 that you people, for God's sake, resign. They also were tired, sick and tired, In Malayalam we say, Nayar pidicha pulivai, The Nayar got hold of the tiger and of the tail. The tiger wanted to go away. Nayar also wanted to go away. So the question, who will take the initiative? Nayar is afraid if I leave the tail, the tiger is going to catch. So tiger and Nayar are going round and round and round. So that's somewhat of this here, it's going round and round anyway, finally they have solved that problem. Okay. In addition to burning hers, this council ordered the writing of Wycliffe to be burnt. All writings of Wycliffe must be burnt, including the translation of the Bible. Everything must be burnt. And in order, dig up that old man's bones, burn them and scatter them in the river. So that was the decisions of the second council, Constance. Good decisions, right? All these 300, 400 bishops and all these people, princes are all coming down. They are discussing what to do with these things. You can just imagine, the shallowness and the meaninglessness of these councils. They are not, there are serious issues these men have pointed out. Very serious doctrinal issues and abuses. They don't have time to think about any one of them. The third council at Basel was called to restore the unity of the church in Bohemia. Terrible slaughter of the followers of John Huss caused great hatred for the Roman church in Bohemia. John Huss's followers were brutally killed and blood was flowing like anything. So people, an average peasant and average businessman looked at Roman Catholic Church with a hatred and disgust. Murderers. So they wanted to heal that. So that this image that we have gained, we have done it, but that's true, but we have to whitewash and make our image a little better. So in 1436 an agreement was reached with the Hussites, who are the followers of Huss. It allowed some freedom of preaching. Okay, you guys do some preaching. We don't say don't preach all. But it also attempted to reform the clergy. It also allowed believers to participate in the cup also. Until that time, believers were not allowed to participate from the cup, only the bread. So then John Huss said that it is a right of a Lord's Supper is meaningful only when the believers participate the bread and the cup. Because Paul said that which I received from the Lord, is the bread, and in like manner he took the cup and he blessed it and said that, you drink from it. So you cannot withhold the cup from the laymen, the people. Only the priest would drink, because it was basically liquor. So, so it's a fun to drink it. Yeah. And John F. Kennedy was assassinated, I have watched the TV and, because I always watch, but Mother Teresa was also, she died, I watched the whole funeral. The reason I wanted to watch is, what they do? Will at any point they will say that Mother Teresa was a godly woman with all the faithful attendance of the church and the good works, her soul is entered into heaven and we don't need to pray for her. No. They couldn't say that because the system is in permit. Even Mother Teresa has to go through the purgatory. Isn't that terrible? The system does not permit anybody to go straight to heaven.
But now that she has been declared as a saint.
And that they can do that. The Pope has a right to pull her out of that. Yeah. See, the extra merit is in the hand of the Pope. So Mother Teresa had a lot of merit, maybe a few points only. So that Pope said that, give it to her, let it in her account. Take that mother out of it.
But when the Pope goes, he will also go to the Pope.
Well, somebody has to, One of the Pope was asked once by a newsman, when he visited America, said that dear Father, will you go to heaven when you die? It's a big question. In American, these news reporters are smart guys. They only throw the bait, he has to bite. So he was very, very, very thought for a moment and said, I believe I will go when I die. What's the basis of that belief? The next question. That's a big question. He said, the prayer of 1.5 crore, how many crores of people?
1.5 billion.
Yeah. The prayer of so many people, will God overlook that prayer? In another sense, what? This man can go heaven only by the prayer of so many sinners. Who all praying every day 3 times, have mercy upon us, have mercy upon us, have mercy upon him also. So that's the system. This is the system. Nobody can live better than Mother Teresa as far as good works is concerned. She has done so much. At least in her case, they should say that thank you God for taking her directly to heaven. She doesn't have to go through purgatory. The system does not. The system makes everybody to go through the scanner, It's a little hot scanner. You have to go through that one. That's. So, some, yes.
So you're telling something about Kennedy?
Yeah, yes. See this. John F. Kennedy died, and I have watched these things, and interestingly, there was mass offered. I don't know how many times mass was offered by the bishop of New York. The cardinal or archbishop was there. By the time the last mass was there, 2 people were holding him because he was drunk. Honestly. They were supporting him because he has, every time after the mass he has to drink this. So 10-15 mass, you drink all that. Plus his usual drink. And plus to cover up the emotional strain. Well, this is an abused system. Anyway, John has said that let not the priest drink it all, give some to the infants also, because they deserve it. The Bible commands it. So, that was someday. So the Bohemians, they said that. Okay, all right, we will allow you to participate from the cup also. Isn't that a great allowance? A man has to be burned on stakes in order to gain this. And a lot of his disciples were to be burned on stakes for the living people had to participate from the Lord's Supper, the cup. Kasa and Vilasa. Otherwise only Kasa, no Vilasa for people. Isn't it terrible? Very terrible. Yes. So they have come in 1436, an agreement was reached with the Hussites. It allowed some freedom of preaching. It also attempted to reform the clergy. It also allowed believers to participate in the cup also, if they desire. The council also allowed special privileges to people who oppose the church. Yes. Simply because people oppose the church, they said, we are not going to, burn them down anymore. Simply because they oppose the church. If they do very severely, this wrong, that wrong and all that, if they oppose the church because of some excesses the priests do locally and all that, then we're going to overlook it. So at least that much concessions they were able to do. This council at Basel also made some agreement with the representatives of the Eastern Church, which seemed to have healed the division of 1054. The Greek representatives agreed to accept the teachings of the Western Church in exchange for the help to put down the Turks. The Turks were going to attack Constantinople. Yes. The Patriarch of Constantinople and also even the Emperor, they were very weak and the Turks were very strong. So they appealed to the Pope. Because the Pope had all the army of Germany, France, Italy and all those things. So said, please tell those kings to send their armies to defend. In exchange, we'll accept some of those teachings, maybe, the divisions opened up about the clothing of the priest and the beard of the priest and the girdle of the priest and maybe the what is it called, the leftover bread used to ferment the following weeks. Lord's Supper and all this, such many things. And then there was more serious problems about the Holy Spirit and about some of the other areas, the Eucharist and all that, controversy. So they said that, okay, we will agree. However, when the report of the agreement reached the East, there was great opposition. The people said absolutely no compromise with Rome. No, we never wanted to accept Rome. So the representatives were condemned as heretics. These representatives who went for the council, they were condemned heretics. 10 years later, the Turks came and conquered Constantinople. That put an end to all attempts of unity. Now there is no meaning because Turks already conquered it. Pope cannot do anything. So both basically Eastern Emperor and Western Emperor are gone. The Roman Empire is basically gone. Yeah, this is sad. You think about the time when Constantine came, and then he gave the freedom to the church and how he made Christianity the official religion of the Roman Empire and the amount of freedom Christians enjoyed, the free air they began to breathe. And from there, the air so polluted and so corrupted and people couldn't breathe, it's poisonous. So they had to rebel against. The corruption increased. God sometimes shows mercy to us. He gives us certain freedom. If we are not going to use that freedom properly, God is going to take that freedom away. This is a lesson we have to learn from, history. God's long suffering, his anger, he does not show his anger like Psalm 103 says, Yes, his long suffering is long, but that does not mean, for infinity, he will, overlook our sins. No, he will not. Now the Renaissance, you know what the Renaissance are? You are not students of history, you definitely heard about Renaissance. Renaissance is a period of time when the art and all that comes. Basically, it is a classic, the learning the classics. The classics of Greeks and Hebrews and Latin and the great writings of Plato, Aristotle, Homer, and the Roman writers like Seneca and all these great, there are many, and they begin to be read and understand. And then again, the Renaissance came in arts, the paintings. They begin to paint the ancient themes, basically the themes of the Bible. Otherwise, the painting gone. They were painting whatever they want. But now people begin to study the Bible in the original languages, the stories of creation, the stories of the flood, Abraham offering Isaac, and all these things and everything, they wanted to put them into canvas. So the Renaissance paintings are so beautiful. You can Even buy, go to an art bookstore. There are some, I'm sure in Bombay you have definitely. You can buy some of these, Renaissance paintings. They are very beautiful. They are very beautiful. Even if you can get not the original, of course, millions of dollars will cost, but the reprints are available. So they are so beautiful, so nice. Yeah. The thing is that they were, realistic paintings. The new modern thinking of arts never came. These were realistic period when they only painted things as they are. So you don't have a head with the feet over it and another feet with an eye on it. That's a modern painting. You have to interpret. Even you ask the painter, what do you mean? He said, well, the artist never interprets this painting. That is for the beholders to interpret. So realism then gone, surrealism came, and so many classes of paintings came. Nowadays I don't know what is the latest. I don't keep any more reading on these things. I don't have the time. And I have found that the newspapers in Bombay don't carry any standard articles also. Hindu paper is not available. Hindu usually have some nice articles on such topics, but Bombay Times and all have dirty pictures and and advertisement by Big Bazaar and all these things. They are meaningless. It does not add. Anyway, the Renaissance has come. When the barbarians of Germany conquered the Western Empire, the ancient Greco-Roman civilization was almost wiped out. However, the barbarians never conquered the Eastern Empire for another 1,000 years. From 476 to 1453, the Eastern Empire was saved. So the Western Europe laid in ignorance and barbarianism. The Eastern Empire was preserved in ancient Greco-Roman civilization. The Byzantine Empire was a cultural empire. Men like Charlemagne occasionally put a little oil in the Western lamp. Crusaders also brought with them some culture from the East. Their contacts with the Arabs of Spain brought some culture. The real revival of learning called the Renaissance came as a result of trade and commerce. Yes. People were exposed to educated and cultured noblemen who inspired the Western noblemen to have education. They said, hey man, you can read your name, you can sign your name, huh? You still put your, a good touch up. That sort of, so why don't you start learning? So, they start a little bit learning. So, the Greco-Roman culture of the ancient world was brought back again. People began to read classical language and learning of Latin became respectful. They began to make a change. Does education change people? Oh yes. A man is what he reads. A man is what he reads. From the statements, the talks and the behavior of a person, you can almost say that what is he reading. If he is looking at ugly things and reading ugly things, his behavior and his, it will be ugly. If there will be no enlightenment on his face. If he is reading some good materials, moral materials, ethical materials, the man will be changed. His language will be changed. Yes. So, there were some changes definitely brought. So, Renaissance, definitely. In Italy, the men of early Renaissance were totally irreligious and immoral. And the whole movement of Renaissance seemed to be a revolt against asceticism. Men began to explore man's freedom from restraint and ignorance. In Italy, that's what happened. Italy.
What triggered the Renaissance?
Well,
is it the flow of Eastern literature because of the destruction of...
The Renaissance came because, how long you can go ignorant and stupid. I mean, there's a natural logic, Suppose a family, their children are not learned, but people around are learning and all that. So you naturally have a tendency. So as I said, the business people, they were going to, Europe was going to buy spices from the Arabs. The Arabs had gone to the eastern countries like India and China and all these countries. Those countries were far advanced. Far advanced. You know the story of how Vasco da Gama, when he came, he has brought in some clothes, coerced clothes from, Spain and all, thinking that all the Indians are naked, so, like sackcloths, so a whole ship full of, you want to do a favor that, clothe these savages in India. But he came and he landed in a car park, near Calicut, and of course he had a meeting with Samudri, who was ruling there. So Samudri gave him a sari, it was in a small matchbox. So opened the matchbox, 7 meters of clothes in a small matchbox. This man went back and drowned all the clothes in the ocean.
Is that true?
Yeah, that's true. Well, you ask me whether I'm a first-hand witness or not. Historical books say yes. Historical books say yes. You know what calico is? Calico is a cloth that was manufactured in Calicut. It said that he has purchased plenty of calico clothes in his ship. The calico cloth is not bleached, that's the only difference. It is unbleached. പഴയ മലയാളികൾ അമ്മച്ചിമാർ so India was far, Kerala was far achieved. I don't say India, Kerala was far advanced. So this culture they came across, they have come across these cultures. So they went there and they spread this news. Hey, we have brute power, we can go and fight. We know how to swing our swords and all that. We can fight with our oars against the waves and all that things and all that. But those people there have character, have education, they have art and they have nice clothes and everything. So, though these news, such news, the Arabs also are well-dressed people, they were, yes. So that made a big difference. That made a big difference. Even the Jewish people were far advanced people. Even the picture we get from the Old Testament, yeah, they were far advanced people. They were not Westerners, they were Orientals, They were all part of this culture. So the Western culture was, was no education, no culture. So Renaissance was a natural result of these things. They then began to learn languages and they had a culture, they had a culture. The Greeks had a culture. And even the Romans had a culture. Augustus and Julius Caesar and all those things, they were not uncultured people. That was gone, but by the time of Constantine, then things began to change. So they wanted to go back and dig some of these literatures and all that. They start studying Hebrew and Greek and Latin and all these things, and then they found out that there was a world once upon a time where people were more sophisticated and more, cultured, where they treated men like men. So these things begin to improve. So the Renaissance scholars in Italy were very bad, but in other places they were not. Some of the popes were simply pagans with carnal appetites. Alexander VI was a man of this sort. The sinful and luxurious lifestyle of the popes necessitated a lot of gold and money to flow from several Western European countries to Vatican. They used the different methods to take gold and money to Vatican. People of Europe were upset about these things. In Florence, Italy, there was a priest. You know what is his name? Savonarola. Savonarola. Savanorola. He was a priest. He preached against the wickedness of the popes. He attacked Pope Alexander VI very vehemently. He did not attack the Roman Catholic Church, but he attacked the abuses in the Roman Catholic Church. He attacked only the wickedness of the priests and the bishops. However, the clergy and the bishops got infuriated. They hanged him in 1498 and burned his body. So anybody who will attack